is Maya Trotz. Maya is a professor at the University of South Florida, and she will be talking to us about issues of inequity and specifically how they've been presented during COVID-19. She'll talk a little bit about her Envision Sustainable Communities course and how to interface with student learning. So without further ado, Dr. Trotz.
Thank you, Kim, and good afternoon, everyone. 3 crises are on my mind today: COVID-19, criminal justice, and climate change. And what I'd like to do today is share some experiences that I've had with a Strong Coast, which is a graduate traineeship program that brings together environmental engineers, anthropologists, and marine scientists to work with communities on food, energy, and water solutions. In particular, I draw from the work of Dr. Maya Trotz, a recent graduate from the program, and a required course that I teach that Kim just mentioned. I would try to link COVID-19, criminal justice, and climate change to the discussions on systemic biases in environmental engineering education. Next slide. Today, 1,104,408 people have died from COVID-19. In the US, that number is 222,831. Many of us have lost loved ones, including direct family members of our Strong Coast program. Thanks to the work of Dr. Kendi at BU's Center for Anti-Racist Research and The Atlantic, the COVIDtracking.com website provides COVID-19 data by race. In the US, Black people die for every 100,000 Black persons, 100 Black people die. The number for white persons is 44. So that's a 2.3 times difference. Amidst the trauma, can we go to the next slide? Amidst the trauma of COVID-19, on May 25th, 2020, we witnessed the killing of an unarmed Black man, George Floyd. The middle of this mural in Minnesota includes names of other Black Americans like Breonna Taylor who have been killed by police. Blacks in the US make up about 13% of the US population, but they account for 36% of the unarmed persons shot by police between 2015 and 2019. And today, across the US, we see social justice movements calling for an end to these inequities and all the others that Kim, Susan, Dan have mentioned. Susan mentioned that for every $100 of wealth, white wealth, Black wealth is $10. In an article that Cross et al. Did on the misperception of racial economic inequality, they found that even though Black wealth had not changed since the 60s, the perception of Black wealth was that it was 80% that of white wealth. So rather than the actual value of $10, people thought Black wealth or think Black wealth is $80. And they argue that one needs to address structural changes because we have this odd perception of those inequities. Next slide. Many professional organizations, AESP included, have issued statements on addressing inequities. The Code of Ethics of the American Society of Civil Engineers says that we must treat all persons equally, that we must consider diversity of the community and shall endeavor in good faith to include diverse perspectives. I've had the honor of working recently with Dr. Yvette Pearson, one of the AESP 2020 keynote speakers that Dan discussed. And she made it clear that we need to support a Jedi culture. So yes, we need diversity. Yes, we need inclusion to make sure that there's meaningful participation in everything. We need equity to ensure that people have the resources so that they can be present and participate meaningfully. But we need justice to break down the structures and barriers that harm and limit who is present and who meaningfully participates. And this semester, my students and I, we are exploring how built infrastructure, as a part of our Envision Sustainable Communities course, how that built infrastructure perpetuates some of the inequities that we see. The course revolves around the Envision Credential and Certification Program, which is currently endorsed by ASCE. Next slide. And 2 weeks ago, Mr. Josh Frank, an urban designer in Tampa, presented on a highway project and his vision to transform it into boulevard. We had been reading about environmental justice, watching videos by Dr. Robert Bullard, who's seen as a father of environmental justice. And Josh presented these slides showing our 275 and I-4 that had pretty much helped to disrupt Black communities in Tampa. And my time is up, but I'll just take one more minute if I can. And students learned that one of the most productive parts of Tampa, Central Avenue, the business part of the Black community, was one of the areas destroyed when the highways came through. Next slide. As we go through the Envision course, students are really asking questions about our field. Some of graduate students had never heard of the way in which our infrastructure has impacted certain communities. We've been able to bring speakers in, and we're asking questions to think of what our future looks like. Over the summer, our Strong Coast program partnered with the Bloom Center at Berkeley and with the University of Arizona's Indigifuse program to host a workshop on co-creating knowledge on food, energy, and water systems with Indigenous populations. And I'll leave with this quote from Dr. Begay, who says that, everything is a living system, and it's a living system of interrelationships with man as an integral part of the whole. And I speak about Black folks in this presentation, but really and truly, it's Black and brown folks, and in particular, Indigenous folks in the US, and their access to food, energy, water at this time have been really just as horrible and horrific as the experiences that we've seen in inequities in Black communities. And I think it's a time for our field to really look at this idea of Jedi culture and how do we learn from others, because in some cultures, the way we do science does not even resonate with the way in which they think of things like water. Thank you.